Imagine this. You're standing in a crowded room, people laughing, chatting, exchanging empty pleasantries. The air is thick with unspoken rules, a silent contract dictating what can and cannot be said. You listen, nod, smile at the right moments. But deep inside, you feel it, a suffocating disconnect. You notice things others ignore, the contradictions, the self-deceptions, the absurdity of it all. Someone boasts about their job, but you sense the exhaustion in their voice. Another person raves about a popular TV show, and you wonder, do they truly enjoy it, or are they just following the script handed to them? The conversations swirl around you, light and effortless, yet something about them feels artificial, rehearsed, and then it hits you. You are alone, not physically, not socially, but existentially. There is a wall between you and the world, invisible yet impenetrable. And the worst part, you can't unsee it. The deeper you think, the further you drift. What once seemed harmless now feels grotesque. Small talk becomes unbearable. Mediocrity, inescapable. The very fabric of social life feels stitched together with comforting lies. And you wonder, how does everyone else not see it? And then the chilling realization, they do see it. They just don't want to, so they look away. And they expect you to do the same. But what happens when you refuse? History is littered with the wreckage of those who saw too much, thought too deeply, and dared to speak the truth. Socrates, condemned for corrupting the youth with questions. Galileo, silenced for seeing beyond the sky. Nietzsche, dismissed as mad for peeling back the illusions of morality. Arthur Schopenhauer, ridiculed for his unflinching dissection of human suffering. What do these men have in common? Intelligence? Yes, but not just intelligence. A dangerous kind of intelligence. The kind that disrupts. The kind that reveals. The kind that terrifies. Because here lies the great paradox. Society depends on intelligence to progress, yet it fears intelligence when it questions too much. We celebrate thinkers, but only those who tell us what we want to hear. The moment their insights become unsettling, they are cast out, labeled as cynics, pessimists, or madmen. But why? Why does society, which thrives on innovation, instinctively recoil from those who see too deep? Why do those who think beyond the surface become threats rather than heroes? And more disturbing, what does this fear reveal about us? Think about it. What if intelligence is not a burden? What if understanding the world too well makes it harder to live in? What if the very thing that makes you see reality more clearly also isolates you from it? These questions gnaw and unravel the narrative demand, answers so deep, ancient, very psychological. What is it that makes intelligence so unsettling? Why does society, which prides itself on knowledge and progress, instinctively push away those who think too deeply? The answer lies buried in the human psyche, woven into the very structure of our fears, our desires, and the fragile illusions that keep us sane. To understand this, we must go back to the core of human nature itself, the psychological instinct to reject the uncomfortable. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." The average person is not guided by reason, but by comfort. The mind is not designed to seek truth. It is designed to survive. And survival, for most, means maintaining a delicate equilibrium of beliefs that make life feel stable, predictable, and safe. The moment you introduce an idea that threatens that equilibrium, an unsettling truth, a contradiction too large to ignore, you don't just challenge someone's beliefs. You challenge their entire psychological foundation. Think about it. If you were to tell someone that their deepest held convictions are illusions, they wouldn't respond with curiosity, would respond with defense. Their mind would twist and contort to reject your words, not because they are untrue, but because they are too true. This is cognitive dissonance at its most primal. The human brain is wired to reject information that threatens its internal harmony, even if that information is objectively correct. The greater the truth, the greater the resistance. And the most intelligent people, they don't just bring uncomfortable truth. They embody, they radiate in the way they speak, in the way they observe, in the way they refuse to look away when everyone else does. That is what makes them dangerous. Schopenhauer's dark vision, why most people can't handle the Schopenhauerly honest philosophy better. He saw it as a double insight, but also his work, the world as will and represent. Schopenhauer argues that reality of its comes grim and ruled by suffering, living and carefully crafted to keep from seeing. But they wake up, they see beyond precisely why they society shallow is a lie. Most people don't want an answer to that question, and so outsiders. The outsider, intelligence as social isolation. Jean-Paul Sartre, mauvaise foi, bad people lie to society function, collectively lie, followed, adopt, not because they are means, they are expected. They ask why. Why must we work ourselves to death? Why must we follow, take no sense about things that deep down know are true? And the moment you start asking why, you find the more you understand, the less you are, and the more you not on senses. That is why in Terrify they expose the reality in society, rejected but active, and as this fear of has consequences you might expect. The fear of intelligence doesn't just result in social discomfort. It shapes the world in ways most never even realize. It creates invisible walls, dictates unspoken rules, and silently punishes those who see too much. But the consequences run far deeper than simple rejection, because when intelligence is feared, it is also suppressed. The silent war against intelligence. Imagine a child, brilliant, observant, endlessly curious. He asks questions that make adults uncomfortable. He sees through the contradictions in what he's told. He notices when authority figures say one thing but do another. At first, people laugh. You think too much, they say. Stop over-analyzing everything. But as he grows, the responses become harsher. Teachers dismiss his questions. Peers call him arrogant. Society, in subtle but unmistakable ways, teaches him a lesson. Stop thinking so much, or you will suffer for it. So, he has a choice. He can conform, dull his mind, suppress his insights, pretend he doesn't see what he sees. He can exchange truth for acceptance. Or he can remain true to himself, continue thinking, questioning, refusing to play along. But in doing so, he will pay a price. Isolation, alienation, the slow, painful realization that intelligence is not a gift, but a curse in a world that does not want it. How many brilliant minds have been silenced before they even had the chance to fully develop? How many ideas have been crushed under the weight of conformity? How much potential has been lost? Not because it wasn't there, but because society deemed it dangerous. This is not a new phenomenon. It is ancient. It is biological. It is psychological. It is the reason Galileo was threatened by the church, the reason Socrates was sentenced to death, the reason why, throughout history, those who think differently are often treated as threats rather than visionaries. And the more intelligent a person is, the more they feel this weight pressing down on them. Intelligence and the loneliness of seeing too much. Have you ever had a realization so profound, so undeniable, that you could never go back to seeing the world the same way again? It's like stepping outside of a play and realizing everyone around you is still acting, still following a script. But you can't. You've seen behind the curtain. This is what Friedrich Nietzsche called the burden of knowledge. The deeper you understand the world, the harder it is to find people who see what you see. Conversations feel surface level. Small talk becomes unbearable. Social expectations feel suffocating. And so, intelligence often leads to loneliness. Not just physical loneliness, but existential loneliness. The feeling of being fundamentally different from those around you. This is why some of history's most brilliant minds have been tormented souls. Vincent van Gogh, Nikola Tesla, Emily Dickinson, David Foster Wallace. They saw too much, felt too deeply, thought too far beyond the boundaries of what society could accept, and so they suffered. But the greatest tragedy, it is not just that intelligence leads to loneliness, it is that loneliness often leads to self-destruction. The dark fate of the hyper-intelligent Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote that the higher a person's intelligence, the more likely they are to experience deep melancholy. Why? Because the more you understand reality, the harder it is to find meaning in. Most people are protected by illusions, by religion, by ideology, by the comforting rituals of daily life. But intelligence strips those illusions away. It forces you to see life in its raw, unfiltered truth, and that truth is often bleak. Schopenhauer believed that life was inherently filled with suffering, that happiness was an illusion, and that the pursuit of wisdom often led to despair. Nietzsche, too, spoke of this suffering, of the way great minds are often consumed by their own thoughts, trapped in their own, and this is the final consequence of society's fear of intelligence. Only does it reject those who think too deeply. It often drives destruction, because what happens and sees through but finds no place with what happens comes too much to bear. He has already shown us the answer. Brilliant mind, madness, crushed of isolation, ideas that could have silenced even had a chance. And yet, despite all of this, there is another path, a way to break, a way to a burden, because intent does not have to be rebellion, power, and those who dare to challenge despite the cost. That is the quest now. And what if intelligence is not a curse, but a weapon? What if the very thing that isolates you, the ability to see deeper, think further, and question relentlessly, is the key to breaking free from the constraints of society's fear? Because history tells us something else, something even more powerful than the rejection of intelligence. Society fears intelligence, but it also depends on it. Every great shift in human history, the Renaissance, the Enlightenment, the birth of science, philosophy, and art, began with someone who refused to be silent, someone who saw beyond the illusions of their time and chose to speak even when the world tried to shut them down. The question is, how do you become one of them? How do you turn intelligence from a source of suffering into a source of strength? Step 1. The art of strategic rebellion. The greatest mistake intelligent people make is believing that truth alone is enough. That if you simply reveal the contradictions, people will listen. That if you show them reality as it is, they will thank you. But history shows otherwise. Truth is not enough. Truth is dangerous. And the moment you wield it carelessly, you become a target. So the first step in breaking free is understanding this. You must be strategic. Schopenhauer knew this well. In his essay, The Art of Controversy, he outlines how intelligence must be wielded like a sword, not recklessly, but with precision. If you reveal the whole truth at once, people will reject you. But if you reveal it piece by piece, if you plant seeds instead of burning fields, you can begin to reshape the world without being destroyed by it. Look at history's most powerful thinkers. Not those who were exiled or silenced, but those who changed the world. Leonardo da Vinci, who hid radical ideas in the margins of his notebooks. Voltaire, who used wit and satire to disguise profound truths. Nietzsche, who wrote in riddles, forcing his readers to wrestle with ideas instead of rejecting them outright. This is the difference between destruction and revolution. The goal is not to attack the illusions of the world head-on. It is to dismantle them slowly, methodically, in a way that allows the truth to take root before it is rejected. Step 2. The strength to stand alone. Most cannot bear to be alone. They fear isolation more than they fear ignorance. Intelligence, by its very nature, requires solitude. Nietzsche called it becoming Übermensch, the one who transcends society's limitation, who is willing to walk alone in search of higher. Carl Jung described it as a gradual but necessary process of breaking collective unconscious and forming. This is not requires a psychological, a willingness to be solid, to find strength in it rather than because for valid. Stop explain yourself. Stand. The moment you accept what happened, you no longer feel liberated because now you society who question. Step 3. The weaponization of thought. But freedom is not enough. You must use it. And this is where the true rebellion begins. Look at history's greatest minds. Every one of them, in some way, found a way to channel their intelligence into something greater than themselves. They did not just think, they created. Tesla turned his thoughts into inventions that rewired the world. Da Vinci turned his into art, engineering, and philosophy. Schopenhauer turned his into writings that still shape minds today. This is the final step. Find a way to weaponize your intelligence. It does not matter whether it is through art, science, philosophy, or something entirely new. What matters is that you do not let your intelligence stagnate, because intelligence that is not used turns inward. It becomes self-destructive. It leads to isolation, despair, and nihilism. But intelligence that is wielded with purpose, that is power. That is how revolutions begin, the birth of a new kind of mind. So, where does this lead? You now see what most do not. You understand why intelligence is feared, how it is suppressed, and the unseen ways it shapes the world. But more importantly, you now hold the key to breaking free. You can remain where you are, trapped by the expectations of a society that fears intelligence. Or you can take the first step toward rebellion, toward a new kind of existence, one where intelligence is not a burden but a weapon. The choice is yours. But remember, those who see too much always have a choice: to be silent or to speak, to conform or to rebel, to fade into obscurity or to shape the future. And in the end, only one path leads to truth, the path of becoming more than they ever expected you to be. But what happens when you take that path? What happens when intelligence is fully embraced? That, perhaps, is the final and most powerful of all. You have made it this far. You have seen how intelligence is feared, how it is suppressed, how it isolates those who wield it. You have understood why society resists those who think too deeply, why the world does not reward truth, but punishes it. But now we arrive at the final question. What happens when you embrace intelligence fully? What happens when you refuse to bend, refuse to apologize, refuse to shrink yourself to fit into a world that was never built for minds like yours? Here is the answer, the ultimate truth, one so powerful that once you grasp it, there is no going back. The world is not what you were told it is. It is not fixed. It is not absolute. It is a construct, a fluid, malleable illusion shaped by those bold enough to redefine it. And those who fear intelligence, they fear it because they instinctively know that intelligence is the ultimate weapon, the power to reshape reality itself, the final illusion. Society is an artificial reality. Think back to every rule, every belief, every structure you were taught to accept without question. Governments, economy, religions, moral codes, cultural norms. Where did they come from? They were not handed down by the universe. They were not written into the fabric of existence. They were created by people, by minds, by those who understood what most do not, that the world is shaped by those who dare to define it. This is the terrifying truth that the intelligent inevitably discover. The majority of people are living inside a system without realizing it is a system. They follow rules without asking who made them. They obey structures without questioning why they exist. And those who do question, those who begin to see that reality is not fixed, but fluid, become dangerous. Because once you understand that the world is not something you are simply born into, but something you can actively shape, you become unstoppable. The liberation of the mind. Reality is yours to construct. Arthur Schopenhauer once wrote, "The world is my representation." He meant that reality is not an objective thing that exists outside of it. It is something filtered through your mind, shaped by your perception, defined by your understanding. What does this mean? It means you do not have to accept the world. You do not have to conform to a system designed to suppress it. You do not have to play by the rules society that fears, though instead, your own rule define reality that others yet. And this is where once feared and suppressed becomes the most force in existence. The final decision. Will you be shaped by it? Now, choices you retreat yourself back down. Pretend you never saw behind. Go back to playing by the world that was never, or you race what can stop. Apologize. World different. This lie society is that it is not power. And those who refuse silence, who stand alone because in the end does not comply, who see greater. If you are one,